Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm James, continuing on with this Balsa USA Smoothie build, and it is getting quite close to finishing. I know I have a few more kind of big steps to do, but it's really coming along. So in this video, I'm going to be attaching the canopy, and I'm also going to be adding some details to the fuselage, just some of some decals and such. So I have this sticker material, this yellow and black checkered material that I'm going to cut a stripe out or a strip out. And if you look at the picture on the website or on the ad for the smoothie, you see that it has a band kind of coming down here, a checkered band, and that one's black and white I think. But I'm going to go ahead and use yellow and black, because the only reason is because this is what they had in the shop when I went down to see if they had something, and I didn't want to make a special order, so I think yellow will be fine with the black. And then the other thing is I did purchase some of this Ultrastripe, and this is sort of like a pinstriping material. And I've never used this, but it's sort of, I guess you stick it on and then you use a little bit of heat to kind of apply it to make it, to make it permanent. So we'll give that a go. I want to put a pinstripe along the side. And then going back to the canopy real quick, I've never used canopy glue. I've always epoxied or screwed them on or something like that. But I did get someone did recommend, one of you recommended that I use canopy glue. And this is a Zap product, canopy glue, and I know a lot of people have used this, so I'm looking forward to trying this out. And it says that it's clear, it's fast drying, I guess it bonds any plastics, and it remains flexible, which is kind of the key, that you want this stuff to sort of give a little bit because it's going to be under some stress. So we'll try that out. And I think, oh yeah, and then the last thing is that once the canopy is attached on here, I'm not sure if I just want to glue it straight on and leave it, or if I want to put something around the edge to kind of finish it off. And I was thinking maybe I can use this material here, this Ultrastripe stuff, or maybe I could use some Monokote to kind of just put a nice kind of clean border around it. But we'll see how that goes. I have to be careful because this plastic up here is not that heat resistant. So if I do anything, it's got to be very low heat. So I'm not sure exactly how that's going to come out, but we'll take a look at that. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to point out is off camera, I reinstalled the engine, as you can see here. So that's ready to go. So yeah, so this is going to be cool. I'm looking forward to kind of getting this step finished up because it's going to really make the plane look nice. Okay, well, before I install the canopy or glue the canopy on, I'm going to draw a center line along the top of the fuselage as a reference point for when I install the checkered pattern. And I'll show you what I mean as I do it. So I'm going to do that first, and then we'll move on to the canopy and these other things. Okay, so I had to think a little bit about how I was going to mark the center line on here. It's easy enough to go, you know, from the fin back here, that's from the center there. But I wanted to get a center line up on here. So what I did, or what I'm going to do, is I'm measuring the width of the base kind of this shape right here, which is the back of the cockpit, if you will, and it's about 2 3/8 of an inch wide, and then half of that then would be 1 3/16, which I have marked there, if I'm right. Yeah, right about there. And I'm just going to use my square on here. And right on that 1 3/16, which is right there. I'm going to try to hold this down. My hand's going to be in the way, but I'll just hold it down, and I'm just going to mark it right there. That should be the center of the top, right about there. Small little mark, you probably can't see that. I had to fashion a little bit longer of a straight edge, so I taped this little see-through ruler onto my steel ruler. And if I just line up along right here on the rudder, the kind of the middle of the rudder, and I go to my line, and I can tell that my line is a little bit off from where I just measured it from here. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and make a small adjustment right about there, like that. And I'm going to use my pen, and hopefully this gets me somewhere in the center. It's hard to tell with all the reflection in here. I think that's pretty good. Okay, and just in case you haven't seen this picture of the smoothie enough in this build series, this is the stripe, or the checkered stripe, I'm going to try to replicate on the side here. I don't think I'm going to be doing this sort of like this black with the white pinstripe that you see around it, but I am going to do like a black, I think a black, just a basic black pinstripe for here. So again, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use, I'm kind of thinking maybe probably 4 squares is going to be the width that I'm going to use. And so now I'm going to cut out a nice long strip, and I'm going to put a 45-degree angle into it, and I'll put one on, then I'll do the other. That was kind of fun putting that sticker on. It actually went on pretty smoothly. I thought I was going to have difficulty kind of getting it to come down, but as you saw, I just kind of established the top of it, and I just kind of rolled it over these angles and I just brought it down and kind of carried it all the way through, and it worked out pretty good, and I think the top looks pretty nice the way it finished up there. All right, so that's that, and I think I'm now going to go ahead and put the canopy on. So to start with, I'm just going to use some alcohol to clean off around it. And that's in the instructions for the canopy glue. Just going to clean around here, get any oils off of it. Okay, and I'll also clean the canopy itself. I'm going to go ahead and clean the whole thing. All right, and we'll let that sit for a few seconds and kind of evaporate off of there. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to try just putting a little bead around the entire canopy. And again, it says this stuff dries clear. So I'm just going to go ahead and go around it. Has the consistency of sort of like just a white glue. It's kind of running around. And it does say it dries clear, so we'll see how that turns out. Okay, like that. See if I can do this without making a giant mess. And that stuff didn't even go on that side. Okay. And then I'm going to tape it down. I'm going to take my glove off. Start small. I know this stuff's been around for quite some time and used by a lot of people, so I'm going to have faith. All right, so I'm going to go around this whole thing and put tape on it. All right, so I just ended up taking a lot of tape and just pushing down on it to kind of press that canopy straight down on top of the fuselage. And I put a little bead sort of in the front here, and it seems to be drying pretty quick. At least it's setting. And then this has to sit basically for 24 hours. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave this alone, and we'll come back to it and finish up with some pinstriping, and I'll think about how I'm going to kind of go around the edge of the canopy. So I let this sit overnight, actually for several days. I came back the next day and I could still see the white of the canopy glue. So I decided to go ahead and just let it sit and actually cure up before I took the tape off. And so let's take a look and see how it came out. It's kind of chilly lately, so it may be that it's taken a little bit longer than it normally would have to cure. I'm going to have to fix that Monokote right there. So if you're wondering what tape I'm using this frog tape, which is a pretty thin tape, but it's really strong, and it comes in handy for things like this. But boy, it is strong, so you got to be careful. I mean, like I said, I'm going to have to kind of repair this Monokote right here, kind of pulled it up a little bit. So there it is. It looks like it came out pretty good, and actually it finished up pretty nicely. There's a little bit of residue on the outside I think I can clean up, but it looks pretty good as is. So I know I mentioned that I was going to maybe put a border around it, and I'm going to think about that still. I'm not sure exactly how I would do it. And if this were a scale plane, like if I was making a warbird or something like that, I definitely would take the extra time. But I think for being like a sport, kind of just a sport plane like this, I think this looks okay. I may come back and do a border, but I'm going to hold off on that for now. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a black pinstripe down the side of the plane on both sides, obviously. And what I'm going to use for that is I'm going to use this Ultrastripe, which is by Hangar 9, and it comes in different widths and different colors. This is a 3/16 of an inch width. And the way this works is it has a backing, sort of like a sticker, like this. You see the white kind of backing, and you peel that off, and then you can stick this to the surface. And then you come back with an iron using a low heat, and you basically heat it up and get it to sort of adhere to the Monokote. You don't use a high heat like you do to apply the Monokote. Again, you just use a low heat just to kind of get it to stick, and that's what keeps it on the plane. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut kind of, I'll just shape the tip. I'm probably going to make it like a point. And then what I'll do is I'm going to pull a piece out, and I'm going to just stick it all the way down the side, about pretty much to where the elevator is, and maybe about an inch or so from the front, and get it, and then do it that way. And then I'm going to put a little gap where this band is right here. All right, so how I'm going to keep it straight, or how I hope to keep it straight, is I'm going to put some reference marks along the side of the plane. And how I'm going to do that is, if you remember, you may not recall from the earlier when I was building the fuselage, but this side of the plane, this panel here, obviously goes up to the hatch. So this is straight, as you can see here. And then that panel, or this side, or the side of the fuselage, obviously goes all the way down. And where this angle is in here, where this makes the angle here, that's the top of this side panel. So I'm just going to measure down. I'm going to go all along this in different places. And I'm going to measure, I decided I'm going to measure about an inch down with my pen. The pen keeps drying up on me. Right like that. And I'm going to place a bunch of dots down the side of the plane. And then when I get to this area, it's a little harder to see because of the angle isn't sharp. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to carry basically a set of dots all the way down. And then when I pull this out, I'm going to use those dots to keep it straight, hopefully. All right, so let me go ahead and start by putting the dots on, and we'll go from there. All right, so what I think would be easier, at least for me, would be to pull out an entire length of this all the way down to the side. I mean, I could cut one piece and then continue it over, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to use one piece, and I think I'd have a better chance at getting it lined up if I just use one piece. So I'm going to cut this a little bit long, like about here. Like that. And I'm also going to cut the one for my other side. Somewhere like that. Now another way to do this, do a pinstripe like this, would be to cut some strips of Monokote or whatever your covering material is, and then iron it on. I find that to be a little bit difficult because if something skinny like this, it's easy to get it to sort of warp, or kind of for it to stretch and get out of shape, get distorted, I should say, when you're heating it up. It's a little bit harder to use, but if it was Monokote, you could just cut a piece like I said, and then I would lightly tack it down and then try to use as low heat as possible to get it to stick. All right, so I have my two pieces here. So what I want to do is I want to put a point in each one of these. This is going to be the front end of the pinstripe. And I could do a point, I could put just a slant in it one way, but I want it to be sort of equal on both sides. It doesn't have to be perfect because you're not going to look at it that closely, I don't think. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to first tape these down together on my work surface. I don't want them to move. So I'm going to put this one down first, like this. I'll hold that one in place. Put this guy on top. Hold this guy in place on top of that one. That. Then I want to do the same thing. I should have done this on this one first. Because what happens is they can slide on top of each other if you don't have them kind of sandwiched with tape. So I'll do something like that. Now there's probably other ways, I mean, right? So this is just the way I'm kind of thinking about it today. I may do it differently a different day. You know what I can do? Let me get a straight edge. Okay, so hopefully these are kind of close to each other. They're not perfect, but I think that'll do. So let me go ahead and put these on the plane. So let's do a little test run. What I did is I marked about 1 inch from the front here, and that's kind of where I want to start it, right about there. And I'm just going to put my edge of the pinstripe kind of along the bottom of the line of the dots, if that makes sense. So the dots are going to be right on the top edge of the pinstripe. I'll carry it all the way back to the rudder, to the elevator, something like that. Now, the tricky part is going to be able to get the sticker off the back or the backing and then get it to lay down. So let's try it out. Sometimes things go smoothly, sometimes they don't. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I will admit that looked very difficult, because you know why? It was very difficult. I made that, it was pretty hard for me to get that on there straight. And what you notice I did is I figured I would have to sort of get this area lined up first, and I just kind of draped lightly the pinstripe down the side here, and then once I got it attached here, then I pulled it up and gently put it back down. That's just the way I did it. I don't know if there's an easier way to do it, but it seemed to work out okay for me. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean off the ink from the Sharpie, and then we'll go ahead and we'll iron this down. So I'm going to try to use the lowest heat I have on my old iron here, and I'm just going to warm it up. Try not to get it to melt or to distort. Okay, well, there's the first one. I'm not going to say it was easy for me because it certainly wasn't. It was a little bit difficult, but I think I got it on there okay. So let me go ahead and flip it over and I will do the other side. All right, well, I will admit that that was a little difficult for me to do. It was very kind of fiddly to get that thing lined up, and it was sticking everywhere, and it was quite cumbersome, but I think it came out okay. So all right, that's about it for the pinstripe. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple numbers and some other stickers and such. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and add a couple numbers onto the fin up here. Now these are just basically stickers, and these are by Northeast Screen Graphics. There's a couple different, you can just look online for stickers for RC planes. Some of them are water slides, sort of like the old decals you would put on plastic models. You get them wet and you put them on and you kind of squeegee the bubbles out. You can do them that way. This is not one of those kind. These are just basically stickers. All right, well, I decided to go ahead and take it outside. It's a sunny day today, so I thought I would take a look at it and see how it kind of came out. And as you can see here, I got all the stickers and the pinstripe and everything on there. So yeah, I think it looks okay. And again, you know, it was a little bit difficult trying to get everything lined up. You saw me sort of toiling away at it, but in the end, I think it came out all right. And yeah, so our next step on this is going to be to put the servos in, to get the spinner on, get all the control linkages set up, and yeah, moving along, getting closer. Okay, so thanks for watching my channel. I appreciate it. Please send me some comments and suggestions and such. I always appreciate all that, and we will see you next time.